If you've been paying attention this week, you probably noticed I struck a nerve with Colorado fans. No problem. I love the online back and forth, but no Sione Moa, no problem. I still believe BYU is going to bowl the Buffs over in Boulder.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we're previewing BYU and Colorado. Where do I think things lie and where the edges are for BYU in this matchup? Well, I've already detailed a bunch of them for everydayers this week on the podcast, but we'll get into that. We'll also make my Big 12 big picks. Obviously, looking across the conference play finally underway in mass across the Big 12 conference. We'll make picks for those games as well as some of the nationally ranked games across the country. We'll get into all that, and then we'll finish up today's show as we often do with our Locked On Cougars Insider Group Q&A. So it's all brought to you today by our friends over at Mazda. We like to say move and be moved. All right, so BYU, Colorado, under the lights, late night, 8:15 Mountain Time at Folsom Field. I will be there in person. If a Colorado fan wants to come and say hi, I will shake your hand. I will have all the back and forth y'all want to have. It's been a really fun week online because I got clipped a couple of times and I don't mind it. I actually love the online chatter back and forth. It's one of my favorite things about the Big 12 conference. They've got highly engaged fan bases who want nothing more than to talk some smack. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm sure I'm going to get something else clipped from today's podcast and thrown up on social media once again. And as I like to say, any publicity is good publicity. But let's talk about BYU and Colorado. I'm looking at this matchup that BYU not having Sione Moa because he is officially listed as out. If he missed the player availability reports the last 2 days, he will not be playing for BYU in this game, and that's a blow. There's just no doubt about it. He's the Robin to LJ Martin's Batman, but that means more carries for LJ Martin, who, by the way, is leading the country in many different statistical categories when it comes to running the football. And obviously having BYU's offensive line opening the holes for him, he's got to be licking his chops because stats don't lie, everybody. We're 4 games deep into Colorado's season, and across the 4 games that the Buffs have played, they are giving up an average of 194-point-something yards per game, nearly 200 on the ground. You expand that, or I guess narrow it into the 2 Power 4 opponents, so we're talking like-for-like opponents. 2 Power 4 teams they've played, Georgia Tech and Houston. The Buffs are giving up 264.5 yards on the ground. For comparison's sake, BYU through their first 3 games this year is averaging 265.7 yards per game on the ground. I don't know what you can argue with that if you're a Colorado fan. If you cannot stop the run against BYU tomorrow night, it will be a very quick and very thorough beating for the Colorado Buffaloes. The best way to win road games in college football, history says it, is have a power run game that silences the home faithful, controls the clock, controls the tempo, and wins you the football game. BYU has proven very capable of running the ball so far this year. I have got zero problem. Clip this, Colorado fans. I have got zero problem saying that Colorado has the best talent on paper that BYU has faced this season. I got no problem saying that. But unless your defense can finally stop a nosebleed, it's not going to be pretty. BYU will run roughshod in this game. And yes, no Sione Moa to pair with LJ Martin, it is a problem. But Enoch Nawahine, Jovesa Damuni, and Preston Rex are licking their chops thinking, hey, I might get a crack at this Colorado defense. They did it last year in the bowl game. You guys say it's a different season this year. Throw all you want, but I'm looking forward to this matchup. I have been excited to see Folsom Field with my own eyes for many months now. I'm looking forward to being there in person and taking this game in. But I think that BYU's ability to run the football, jam it down your throat, and then have Bear Bachmeier toss it over your heads in play action, it's going to be, I think, a really nice advantage for BYU offensively. Flipping it over to the defense, I love me some Kaidon Salter. I think he's a fantastic football player. I think I watched him at Liberty. I thought he was a home run pickup when they brought him to Colorado. And he had a monster performance against Wyoming this past weekend. The deal is BYU's defense is light years better than Wyoming's. And Wyoming's got a pretty stingy defense. But we're talking about a BYU defense that, in my opinion, it's top 15 at worst in the entire country. And BYU's defense shut the Buffs down with a Heisman Trophy winner and an NFL quarterback the last time these two teams played. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. And some reinforcements are on the way for BYU on defense by way of a 340-pound nose tackle in Justin Kirkland. I threw this up on social media. It's also up here on the YouTube feed if you're watching. That's the player availability report from last night. Justin Kirkland is officially set to make his debut for the BYU football program. And all he is 6'3", 340 pounds of polished American beef in the middle of that BYU defensive line. He is going to allow Keanu, Tanuvasa, and whoever else is playing on that D-line alongside him the ability to have more one-on-one opportunities to harass Kaidon Salter in the backfield. Kaidon Salter is a legit dual-threat quarterback, but if he's running for his life most of the night, that's a problem for the Buffs. The other problem for Colorado in this game, if you look at that player availability report, there's 2 running backs listed right there that are officially declared out. Those would be Simeon Price and DeKalen Taylor. They are 2 of the top 3 running backs that Colorado has on the roster. Simeon Price is actually tied with Micah Welch in terms of actual running backs for the team high in rushing yards with 143 on the season. DeKalen Taylor is just behind them at 83 yards. Kaidon Salter, for what it's worth, is their leading rusher on the year. Colorado's got talent. It's undeniable. I absolutely love what Colorado has, and there's other pieces for Colorado to attack BYU. Sincere Brown, he's a home run ball waiting to happen. But wasn't that the same thing with Travis Hunter last year? And they got exactly 1 home run ball to the Heisman Trophy winner in that bowl game. Everything tells me, the statistics, advanced or otherwise, tell me that BYU has the weapons, the horses, the know-how, and the experience to go into Folsom Field and win this game. Yes, Colorado has the home faithful behind them, but I was there in San Antonio in the Alamo Dome, and trust me, I was on the field before the game, and the Colorado faithful, you guys were loud. Trust me. Really loud in that game, much like BYU fans. That is going to make this game, because I'm expecting thousands of Cougar fans to also show up to Folsom Field in this circumstance. It's going to be an electric atmosphere at Folsom Field. But I still believe BYU's got this one. They've got it in their back pocket because everything tells me they've got everything they need to win this game and go 1-0 in Big 12 play. All right, coming up next, who else do I think wins this weekend in the Big 12? We'll get into that. We'll also take a look at what's happening nationally because it's a big weekend. There's a lot of highly rated matchups, top 25 and the like, across the country. We call it Big 12 Big Picks, and we're getting into those picks coming up next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda is here for you guys. They're moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This past weekend for BYU, I am going to highlight Evan Johnson's pick 6. It completely flipped the momentum in favor of BYU in that win at East Carolina. What a play it was, and obviously it's kind of a standalone because the previous play defensively, he had another interception. That's never happened in BYU football history by an individual player. So that's why Evan Johnson is our Mazda's moving the game forward selection of the weeks. That's when you follow what moves you. The unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. And it's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Now, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors out there. And no matter what you're into, whatever flavor you like, they've got options for you guys. That's the best part about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. And I appreciate the fact they have given up all kinds of support to our podcast along the way as well. So the most important thing you can do with our friends over at 5 Hour Energy is check out what they've got available to you guys now. The best part is whether you need your favorite flavor, you just need that boost to get you through the day, or if you're trying to get focused on whatever you're trying to do in a given day, 5 Hour Energy has got it for you guys. With enough boring flavors caffeine out there, it's time to get your caffeine a flavor upgrade with the 5 Hour Energy shot that you prefer. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com or check them out on Amazon today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us every single day here on the show. And as I like to say on the Locked On Podcast Network, be an everydayer and join us on the podcast. All right, so let's talk about the Big 12 this weekend, because It's officially Big 12 time. BYU kicks off their Big 12 season with the game against Colorado, but the entire league is finally, for the most part, playing conference games. Now, we have a huge one tonight. Number 24 TCU is in Tempe to take on Arizona State. Now, the Horned Frogs, 3-0 on the season, led by Josh Hoover, who has a cool 1,000 yards passing. Yes, 1,000 on the head with 11 touchdowns against 2 interceptions, gets to duel Sam Leavitt. I'm looking forward to watching this one, and I think that Arizona State, they got when they got beat by Mississippi State, I think it kind of lit a fire under them. It kind of woke them up and saying, "Hey, whoa, maybe we aren't necessarily as good as we thought we were." But TCU, man, I think they have proven themselves very worthy of being in the Big 12 contender side of things. ASU has the spread on its side. Our friends at FanDuel have them as a 3-point favorite in this one. That's typically when you're the home team, you get at least 3 points as a home favorite. But give me the TCU Horned Frogs. I think they go 4-0. I think Sonny Dykes has got a really, really good thing going once again. He's got an elite quarterback in Josh Hoover. And as much as I like what Arizona State's got with Rayleigh Brown and Jordan Tyson and Sam Leavitt, I just think TCU knows how to win football games, and they'll squeak this one out on the road against the Sun Devils, which will cause alarm bells down there in Tempe. On to tomorrow, Utah. They're across the country. They're headed to Morgantown, West Virginia, to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. Utah smarting from that upset loss, you want to call it. I guess it was one ranking separate, but Texas Tech ran roughshod in Salt Lake City, and it's nothing against West Virginia. I just don't think they have the horses to hold it up against Utah. West Virginia's got a good defense, but Utah, they're not feeling good about themselves, and they're going to take out some of that wrath on the West Virginia Mountaineers. I think the Cougars, not the Cougars, man, that's a faux pas there. You can clip that. Utah will roll in this one. They're 12.5-point favorites at FanDuel. I think Utah is going to run wild in Morgantown. Then we have Cincinnati at Kansas. I am very intrigued if Cincinnati is legit or if Kansas is legit. I think I'm more inclined to believe that the Jayhawks are, because I really like what Jalen Daniels has. He's in his 6th year as a college quarterback. I think he's been absolutely electric throughout his career when he's been healthy, and the fact that he's healthy will lead Kansas to a home win over the Cincinnati Bearcats. Jalen Daniels, 12 touchdowns against 2 interceptions this season. That's a pretty incredible ratio in terms of touchdown to interception ratio, especially for a guy like him who carries a lot of that offense on his back. And I think they get the job done. Speaking of Kansas, I don't think it's particularly close. I get like a 10-point win in that case. 2 teams that hold a lot of intrigue are up next, UCF and Kansas State. Now, Scott Frost, he made the whole thing about we're not Central Florida, we're UCF. Okay, I get you're trying to find an edge, something to, rally around and whatnot. The good news is for UCF, they're facing off against a Kansas State squad that I just don't know what's happened to Kansas State. Is it Avery Johnson's not the quarterback everybody has tried to hype him up to be for years now? I don't know, but something feels like it's broken in Manhattan. So give me the UCF Knights, even though Kansas State at 1-3 is almost a touchdown favorite at FanDuel. Give me the UCF Knights to go on the road and get the win outright. I think UCF goes to 4-0, and we start to have to have a conversation. Is UCF legit? No, I think it's the conversation is more about how broken is Kansas State. Baylor and Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy is out at Oklahoma State. I think that season's going to go by the wayside really quickly for this Cowboys. And I think Baylor, with Sawyer Robertson leading the way, they're going to absolutely crush the Cowboys in Stillwater. Nobody's going to be feeling good about themselves at T-Boone Pickens Stadium, but that's just how it goes in this day and age. And then we have Arizona at Iowa State also tomorrow. Looking forward to this one. I'm not sure what to make of Arizona because they're off to a 3-0 start, and they've had some really, really impressive results because Arizona is expected to be one of the bottom-tier teams in this league. But I think Rocco Becht and Iowa State handle their business, and they get the win at home and keep their sterling 5-0 record intact. And then the final one, I guess, across the Big 12 is also tonight. Houston at Oregon State. Oregon State is in free fall mode. Houston is going to roll in that one. I don't think that's going to be particularly close. That's the Big 12 picks. Now on to the top 25. It's a big weekend. A lot of big games across the country. Starting off with number 21 USC at number 23 Illinois. Now, USC is out there whining about, hey, we had to play the latest game in the country last week. No, you didn't, because it was Hawaii out on the islands. Maybe you talk about continental U.S. Great. This is Lincoln Riley who's whining about this. And then we have to kick off at 11 a.m. Central Time. You know what could have fixed that problem for you, Lincoln? Oh, wait, USC not blowing up the Pac-12 and joining the Big Ten. Hey, you made your bed, lie in it. But I've got USC winning on the road. I think Illinois, they got absolutely smoked by Indiana. They're not be feeling good about themselves, but I think there's a little bit of a hangover effect from the demolition they absorbed against the Hoosiers. I think USC gets the win and pushes themselves to 5-0, and we start to really hear some of the noise about the boys of Troy, speaking of the Trojans of USC. We have Ohio State, the number one ranked team, going clear across the country to Seattle to take on the Washington Huskies. This is an interesting game because when I talk about home field advantages, playing in Husky Stadium there in Seattle is one of the unique home field advantages in all of college football that I don't think we talk about enough, but I don't think it's enough. I think Ohio State gets the job done. They're a touchdown favorite roughly from our friends at FanDuel. It's kind of been hovering all week long. I think they got enough to get it done, but Washington will acquit themselves well. I think they'll compete very, very well, but I still think Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes get the job done. Then we have number 4 LSU at number 13 Ole Miss. LSU is an interesting case because Garrett Nussmeier is doing some incredible things, but I am absolutely in love with Tristan Chambliss. I think I got his name right. The former Ferris State quarterback, now turned Ole Miss starter. They're playing in the Grove in Oxford, Mississippi. Give me the Rebels to upset the Tigers. Hotty toddy. I'm looking forward to that game. I think it should be a fun one to see those two teams squaring off. We also have the Auburn Tigers at number 9, Texas A&M. I am interested to see if Auburn can hang with a team like A&M because I don't know what to make of this early season look by A&M. They've been pretty darn dominant, and Marcel Reed is a really, really good quarterback, just a great athlete as well. I think Texas A&M is going to kind of expose Auburn here. And if Zach Blackerby's listening, sorry, Zach, didn't mean to upset you, but that's just, I think, where things go. And then the final two I'm going to pick here is Oregon at Penn State, a big game, obviously. NBC has it. It's being played in Happy Valley. Speaking of Beaver Stadium out there at University Park, I have got a thought that Penn State, they may not be everything that we think they are, and I think Oregon's going to get the win on the road, beating the Nittany Lions. I just think that Oregon's got a lot of athletes. What they've built there in Eugene, it's pretty awesome, and I think Oregon gets the win there. And then finishing up, Alabama at Georgia, a rivalry game that is not going to be protected under the new scheduling guidelines in the SEC as they go to a 9-game conference schedule, but no problem. I think Alabama is going to go to Bulldog Stadium. Sorry, not Bulldog Stadium, Sanford Stadium. And they're in Athens, and they're going to get beat pretty badly. I think Kirby Smart's got something cooked up for the team that once upon a time he worked with Nick Saban at, and I think Georgia's going to roll in this one over Alabama, and I think it could be pretty rough. I don't know what to make of Bama. They're ranked 17th at 2-1, but they just don't seem like themselves. I just don't know what it is under Kalen DeBoer. They don't have that air of invincibility that they had under Nick Saban. But I think Georgia, what Kirby Smart's done in his decade now with the Bulldogs, pretty impressive. And I've got the Bulldogs winning those games. So let me know if I'm crazy, if you think I'm up in the night on my picks, but I appreciate any and all feedback as always. I think that it's fun to make these picks, kind of track my record each week. And just to keep, if you're keeping track at home, I have still been hovering right around. I'm actually 3 games over 500 on the season. So we are in the black, to use that expression, but we're just kind of been hovering all season long, right around that 50% mark, but we are still above 50%. That is the positive through now. It'll be the 5th week coming up this week. All right, coming up next, we get to your guys' questions. I sent it out on social media, to our insider group members yesterday, soliciting their questions for our weekly mailbag. They responded en masse, and we'll get to those questions as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Cougars, as well as give you my prediction for BYU and Colorado next, right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Now, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back. It's actually the weekend, let's be honest. But crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by our friends over at DoorDash. Just like you win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Now, this past week, BYU went to East Carolina and won this game, and I got to tip my cap to the young buck, Bear Bachmeier. Career high in passing, really looked like he came into his own in that contest, and he came through, no hesitation, no delay, and helped BYU get the win on the road against East Carolina. And you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. he is absolutely, speaking of Bear Bachmeier, he is on a streak. And just like Bear Bachmeier delivered for BYU, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season long. Save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through 11/18. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. If you'd like the inside scoop on all things BYU, join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's $5 a month to be part of the group. Get the update sent to your phone in the form of a text message, and then you can also respond with your own thoughts as well. And the kicker is you get a 14-day free trial before you're charged a single penny. So join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group and do it today. All right, let's get to those questions from our Insider Group members this week. A lot of good ones that came in, and I'm actually excited to get to a number of these. The biggest thing I'm looking about this is Jonathan asked this, saying, have you heard anything about Che Bryant-Strother? It seems like he would have announced something by now. Now, Kalani Sitake, when asked about his status, said, hey, we're going to let him decide if and when he wants to make a statement. All I understand about it is a season-ending injury for Che Bryant-Strother, and that's disappointing because he was off to a phenomenal start, and to be lost that early on in the season is disappointing. We'll see if he decides to petition for another season of eligibility, but that remains off in the distance. He'll have to make that decision on what he wants to do going forward. Michael, mailbag question for you here, Jake. After we beat Colorado Saturday night, after, as he says, is everyone still going to say we haven't beat any good teams? Yes, they will. And quite honestly, that probably will carry over until BYU and Utah square off in week 7. It's just nothing against anything that we're doing. Speaking of BYU, it's just the simple fact of what the schedule looks like. Colorado has a lot of flash, a lot of pizzazz, but they don't carry the national weight of like, hey, they're a Leviathan. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but we'll see what happens. What does the margin of victory have to be this weekend for BYU to jump in the rankings? That comes from Tyson. Just win. That's my whole philosophy. The rankings are what they are, and I think as long as you win, there's enough movement going on in the rankings for BYU to go from 25, maybe jump up into the 20 range if crazy things happen in the back end of the top 25. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Eric, how do you think Bear would handle his first conference game? I know Colorado might not be the hardest place, but I'm always nervous before the game. I actually was quite nervous for him going to East Carolina, knowing how crazy and rowdy that fan base is down there at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium this past weekend. And he passed it with flying colors. You heard from guys like Fesi Sitake earlier this week. He is wise beyond his years. He's mature beyond his years. He's fairly unflappable. And I don't think necessarily Folsom or any other venue is going to shake him. He's a kid who just goes out there and plays ball. And I can appreciate that. Jordan, out of the injuries, which one will negatively impact us the most? Well, it's easy to say. It's Sione Moa. He's your number 2 running back. You don't replace that production very easily. So I'll see what happens. Bryce, I started saying the season we'd go 7-5 or 8-4. At what point should I be adjusting our expectations if the season continues to be successful? Well, BYU gets to 4-0 tomorrow. You could probably start adjusting a little bit, but I would honestly hold off until they get to that Utah game. That 4-game set from Utah running through Iowa State, Texas Tech, and TCU, those 4 games could be 4 games that BYU makes their case for Big 12 championship contention or fall flat on their face. You get to 6-0 before then, life will be pretty good, but you could very quickly find yourself going from 6-0 to 6-4. That's how tough that stretch is going to be. It'll test BYU, but just keep an open mind on that. Let's see other questions that come in here. If you got to create one BYU themed concession, i.e. a Cougar Tail or a Cougar Paw, what would it be and what would you name it? That comes in from Luke. That's a great question, Luke. I would say, I am a big bratwurst fan. So do something with a bratwurst. I don't know what you'd call it though. I don't know. Let me workshop that a little bit. But I would love a bratwurst of some variety. I don't know what we could do with that, but it's something to pay attention to. And obviously I'll have to workshop that and see what I can think of. Zach, the return game has been a little shaky this season with muff punts and kickoffs. Has the special teams been working on that aspect of the game? Yes, they have. I'm sure that guys like Kelly Papinga as BYU special teams coordinator, he's tearing his hair out trying to make sure that it's as shored up as it possibly can be. I expect they'll be much better in those 2 departments going forward, Zach. He also adds this. I'm also a new member of the Insiders Group, and I appreciate waking up to a new notification every single day. Zach, Thank you for joining. Appreciate you being with us in the insider group. Alex, remember that time that Devin Dampier won the Heisman and ran through the truck stop conference? I hear there was an open truck stop in New Mexico. All right, Alex, you're having some fun. I get it. JT, our good friend over at Locked On Use, he did say that Devin Dampier was a top 10 at worst Heisman Trophy contender. And yeah, that did not bear out to be anywhere near the truth, it appears. What road games are you going to this year? I'd love to see you down in Arizona. That comes from Jeff. Jeff, I will not be going to Arizona this year. I am going to Boulder today. And so far as I have planned right now, that's the only road game this year. We'll see what happens. I'll be sure to update you guys if I do travel. Preston also has this. I'm excited to see Colorado this weekend as well. How do you feel about Kaidon Salter? You think he has what it takes to beat BYU? If BYU lets him get loose, yeah, he's got talent, but he's got to have the horses around him. Two of his top running backs out for this game. And the funny thing about this, if you pay attention to the player availability report, he's listed as probable on said report. I don't know what that means in and of itself, but not to have two of your top running backs and really Sincere Brown's a great wide receiver, but he's one guy. I just don't think they have the horses. Kaidon Salter's a good quarterback, but if you don't have guys to get the ball to, we all know that it's tough to win football games. Kent, if the defense keeps playing the way that they are, is there any way we keep Jay Hill? And if not, is he mentoring somebody to take his place? Well, quite honestly, Jay Hill, from what I understand, aspires to be a head coach once again at some point in the Power 4 level. And yes, if his defense keeps balling out like they are, teams are going to come calling. UCLA, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, I don't care who it is at the Power 4 level, should all kick the tires on Jay Hill. And I know that some of you are going to be mad for me even suggesting or saying that, but it's the truth. He's a great coach, and he deserves that. Now, speaking of, if he's mentoring somebody to take his place, I'm sure a guy like Gennaro Guilford, who just but he picked up the defensive passing game coordinator role this past offseason for BYU. He's a guy who absolutely might be in line to move up to being a defensive coordinator. Justin Enna has been a defensive coordinator before. Kelly Papinga was the co-defensive coordinator for Bronco Mendenhall in his final season or two at Virginia. There are guys on the staff. Gary Anderson was a high-level defensive coordinator for many, many years before becoming a head coach. There are options on the staff. Jay would not leave BYU high and dry. Now, would he take some assistant coaches with him? Probably, but there are guys on that roster, speaking of that coaching roster, that could step up. Carter, who is a player on both sides of the ball you think is flying under the radar? Offensively, good question. I would say offensively, I think we are still underrating what a guy like Bruce Mitchell is doing at center. Think about how recently he was playing defensive line. He has become just a mainstay on that offensive front, and playing the center position, it's not easy. Our good friend Connor Pay is on the staff right now while he still awaits a professional opportunity to come along. And while he's at BYU, do you know what Connor's essential role is? He is the center's coach. He coaches up his brother, speaking of Trevor, who's the backup center to Bruce. But he's talking Bruce through all these scenarios and talking to him literally in practice every single day. It's a great resource to have a guy who's had 4 years of starting experience mentoring the next guy. And Bruce, I think, is getting underrated in that respect. On the defensive side of the football, it continues to be John Taumoepeau. John, I know that Justin Kirkland might take some of his reps this week on the defensive tackle front, but John Taumoepeau has been super, super active early on this season and has been a force on that defensive line for BYU, and we do not give him enough love. He wears the number 55, and pay attention to him because he's super, super active when he's on the field. Tim, what's your assessment of how well the three running backs you mentioned that are filling in for Sione Moa? He's been a big part of the success thus far. Here's the thing. All three of the other running backs, Enoch Nawahine, Jovesa Damuni, and Preston Rex, they all bring different things to the table. Enoch Nawahine, he's a battering ram. He's the guy on 3rd and short you bring in, he puts his head down and drives forward for the 2 or 3 yards you need to pick up the yardage to get a first down. He is that battering ram. He showed off some hops, by the way, trying to jump over that defender at ECU, but he is through and through just a power back. Jovesa Damuni, he's more of a speed back. I don't know. I guess the best comparison is Miles Davis, but better. And that's something against Miles, but Jovesa is a actual running back growing up. Remember, Miles was a wide receiver converted to running back, and he's having a good run at Utah State right now. But I think Jovesa Damuni is that type of speed back who can change the dynamic a little bit. And then Preston Rex, kind of a blend of the other two. But the other thing about Preston is he played a lot of offensive positions in high school. He's got great hands. So you want to talk about a guy who's a receiving threat out of the backfield? I'd probably give that nod to a guy like Preston Rex. I think Preston has got a lot of capability of being a big part of that passing game for BYU. All right, we got to get through these questions quick because we're already over time. But let's get to a few more before we go here. Reagan, do you think we see as many two-back sets with Moa out? Probably not. He says, I feel we see more two tight end sets and fewer two-back sets. That's a great point. I think you'll see more 12 personnel, as they say, with multiple tight ends out there to give that extra blocking to a guy like LJ Martin. I can totally see that. And he also adds this, will the Cougars be able to throw it down the field at Colorado as well as they did against East Carolina? Colorado's got better athletes, and especially guys like DJ McKinney, who's considered to be a top 50 at the worst NFL draft pick with probably a first round pick at corner. It's not going to be as easy, but BYU will still pick their spots and they still will throw it down the field. There's just no doubt about it. It's in the whole DNA of what Aaron Roderick's offense is to take those shots. So I absolutely think you'll see that. Caleb, what do you think of Tiger Bachmeier's performance at punt return so far this year? I think he's done a good job. And it was interesting. You mentioned, do you think we'll see Parker take over again at some point this season? Parker said, I need to get a chance and I want to take one to the house to kind of get past the two fumbles he had earlier on the season. Was he alluding to the fact that he thinks he's going to play against Colorado? I don't know, but pay attention to that. Parker is intending on being a punt returner again for BYU, and we'll see if he ultimately gets that opportunity to do just that. Dawn, Jake, you and I enjoyed playing high school football. My three sons also played high school football on the offensive and defensive lines. I enjoy watching the war in the trenches, as you say. What matchups do you focus on during the game, and what games within this game should we pay attention to? Well, it's absolutely the battle in the trenches. You have to see BYU's offensive line against this Colorado D line. If they control that line of scrimmage, BYU is going to be able to run the ball and run it well. They have to control that. Conversely, BYU's defensive line has got to be able to bottle up a guy like Kaidon Salter. He can run. He's really, really quick. And his ability to escape the pocket, it's going to be a problem if BYU allows him to get loose. So I focus a lot on trench play in game. I actually sometimes miss watching the ball because I'm paying attention to linemen doing battle, but that's just nature of what I've been trained to do my entire life. And I played offensive and defensive line, much like your boys did, Don. And I do think that battle within the battle in the trenches is absolutely worth watching. Also, keep an eye on BYU secondary against a guy like Sincere Brown. He's got a legit track speed. He can get down the field in a hurry, and BYU's going to have to make sure they bottle him up. He's averaging, just for comparison's sake, he has 7 receptions on the year, 203 yards. That comes out to 29.0 yards per reception. He's a home run threat, and BYU has to make sure that they pay attention and bottle him up as best they possibly can. And then let's see here. What else we got? Oh, we got great questions here. Final one. Okay. On the NIL side of things from Parley, I'm curious if we are keeping up with Texas Tech. If you know a roster, if there's anything in terms of similar amounts. I do not know if BYU is, because Texas Tech's been rumored to spend somewhere between $18 and $20 million on this year's roster. Did BYU spend anywhere near that vicinity? I do not know off the top of my head, but I just do know this, Parley. BYU competes very favorably with NIL. That's nothing to sniff at. Texas Tech is flashing a ton of cash, and I do think that it is something to pay attention to, but I do think that BYU's NIL, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be very, very capable of spending the money they need to stay competitive, and that means retaining talent and the like. So that's something to pay attention to on that front. And then let's see, final questions here. Sione, from Adrian, without Sione Moa, do you think we can effectively ground and pound Colorado as you suggested we should on the crossover? Yeah, I still believe they can, even with Sione out. LJ is going to get more carries. The other running backs get more carries. Heck, Bear Bachmeier may get a few more carries, but I think BYU is very capable of being able to ground and pound them. I absolutely believe that. Brett, hi, Jake. What's the chances that Kalani stays at BYU compared to what's the percentage of him leaving, in your opinion? Percentage of him staying at BYU, I guess do it for this season, 99%. I don't think Kalani's looking to go anywhere, everybody. He could stun me and everybody else out there, but I think he's very comfortable in Provo. He's got a great thing going with the Cougars. Could one of those Godfather-type offers come in and take him away? Maybe, but who's gonna offer that? That's the question. I think he's his percentage of leaving BYU, I think it's very, very low at this point. I really do think it's a fun time to watch what BYU's doing with what they've built in that football program. Morgan, are you worried at all about the number of yards ECU was able to put on BYU? They didn't have too many points, but they did seem to be able to move the ball. They didn't move the ball. And yes, BYU has to be wary of that. Jay Hill was wary of it because if you listen to his comments during media availability this week, I asked him a question about them attacking kind of that middle part of the field. And you can kind of tell if you watch the anguish on his face, it irks him that happened against his defense. He wants his team to perform much better on the backside of that. Let's see. Rick, is Smith Stone considering transferring from Utah? Heck, if I know. You know something I don't know, Rick? Here's the thing. Every offseason, Smith has been rumored to be leaving Utah. I don't know what to make of it. I just don't know what's going to happen on that front, and we'll see what happens with that. But it's par for the course. I always get that question asked of me often enough, but I just don't think anything happened. The final word going to Aiden here. My question for tomorrow's show is if you could choose one player from the last 3 seasons to come back and play for this year's BYU team, who would it be and why? Ooh, that's a great question, Aiden. I am going to say 3 seasons. Man, I got to think back on this. If you give me 3 seasons worth, so that's essentially BYU since they joined the Big 12 Conference. Thinking back on it, you gave me one of those guys to come back and play with this team. I would take, I got 2 guys in mind. I'm going to take 2. I would like to have Tyler Batty back for one more season, playing alongside a guy like Keanu, Tanuvasa, and Justin Kirkland. Tyler Batty, I think, would feast with this defensive line this year. And the other guy that I've got in mind is a guy like Eddie Heckard. I am concerned about BYU's nickelback spot, and Eddie's coaching Tommy Prassis right now in that spot. But to have Eddie there to run that nickel spot, I think it'll make BYU's defense that much more elite. So those are the guys I would like to see playing for BYU this year if I can pull them from the last 3 seasons. So there you go. Oh, yeah, we are way over time. 37 minutes. All right. Sweet. I know. As always, appreciate all of your guys' feedback, your interactions, and Colorado fans. See you in Boulder. Should be a fun one. As always, thank you for all of your support of the podcast. Please continue to subscribe, rate, review, share with your family and friends. And as always, come back here tomorrow for our preview edition of the podcast. I'll be in Boulder doing that. And we'll also do a postcast from the Airbnb I'm staying at. So hopefully the internet holds up. We'll find out how that goes late tomorrow night, early Sunday morning. But as always, thank you for being an everydayer here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow from Boulder.